Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone XR and the iPhone SE are the least expensive iPhones offered new from Apple right now. So in my left hand I have the iPhone XR, and in my right hand I have the new 2020 iPhone SE. And so in this video I want to help you decide which one would be best for you, not only based off price, but based off things like the camera, overall performance, and battery life as well, and some other things. And if you want to jump to any specific point in this video where you want to see maybe the camera comparison, all of the time codes are linked in the description below. Now the first thing is the iPhone XR comes in a variety of colors, as does the iPhone SE. The iPhone XR is available in white, black, coral, yellow, blue, and red, whereas the iPhone SE comes in three colors: white, black, and product red. And the product red colors that I have here, they each help donate to different causes around the world to help fight disease. So these particular phones will actually give a little bit of the profit from the phones from Apple to those causes. Now, as far as the price overall, the iPhone XR ranges from $599 and goes up to $649, whereas the iPhone SE ranges at $399 and goes to $549. Now you have some storage options as well. The iPhone SE is less expensive, but comes in 64, 128, or 256 gigabytes, whereas the iPhone XR only comes available in two storage sizes, 64 and 128 gigabytes. So you do get a little bit less storage. Now these options have changed since they were initially introduced, and since the new iPhone SE is fairly new at this point, within a month or so, depending on when you're watching this video, it comes in three different options and has a larger storage size. Now, as far as the overall build and construction, both are made out of aluminum. In fact, the iPhone SE is basically an iPhone 8 as far as its design and overall feel. So it's aluminum on the sides, and on the left-hand side, you have the same exact layout. You have your silent switch on the top, followed by your two volume buttons. And then on the right side, you have your power sleep wake button and your SIM card trays. And while the SIM card tray only holds one SIM card, it does support dual SIM through the actual eSIM inside the phone. So you can use dual SIMs that way for either phone. Now, as far as the top is concerned, there's nothing there. And then on the bottom of the phones, we have the exact same layout. So you have a speaker, a microphone, and your lightning connector or your lightning port. Now both support wireless charging. That means they have glass front and back, and they both have singular cameras, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now the size difference between both of these is going to be maybe the deciding factor for a lot of people. So the iPhone SE is a very small phone. It fits in your hand very well, especially if you have small hands. As you can see, I don't. But the iPhone XR offers a little bit bigger display, a little bit bigger feel. It's a little bit thicker as far as its overall size, and it's just a larger phone in general. Now, if you've ever seen an iPhone 6 all the way to an iPhone 8, that's the exact same size as this phone for the most part, the iPhone SE. The iPhone XR and the iPhone 11 are the same size. They're in between the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So it's sort of an in-between size with the XR, and a lot of people really like this size. The iPhone 11 Pro Max or XS Max was just too big. So the iPhone SE is really for those that appreciate a smaller phone. They also both have IP67 certification, so that makes them water and dust resistant up to 1 meter for 30 minutes. That does not mean they are waterproof, and Apple will not cover damage if it's caused by water. So if you want to take this swimming or in the shower, you really should be putting it in a fully waterproof case where Apple will actually guarantee that. They will not guarantee replacement of water damage. Even with AppleCare, you'll still have to pay a bit to replace the phone. Now, the displays on both phones are fairly similar in that they're LCD displays, and they have a lot of similarities as far as their overall construction. Now, obviously, there is a size difference. So with the iPhone XR, we have a 6.1-inch liquid retina display. It's 1792 by 828 with 326 pixels per inch. The iPhone SE also has 326 pixels per inch, but is 1,334 by 750 at 4.7 inches across. And you can see it's squared off, whereas the iPhone XR has the rounded corners and Face ID. Both of them have haptic touch. There is no 3D touch on either phone, so if you long press on the displays, you'll get the same sort of thing on both devices. You don't have 3D touch anymore. It's all just done by press and hold. They also have similar brightnesses at 625 nits. So if I turn the phones all the way up, you won't be able to tell on the camera, but they have the exact same brightness level on both of them. Both displays look really good. Despite what some people say, the actual pixel density is high enough that you can't see the pixels, and they have good viewing angles as well. They go nice and bright indoors and outdoors, and you shouldn't have any issues seeing them at all. So they both look really good. They have great viewing angles, and you can't see the pixels. The only difference is with the higher end iPhones that have OLED displays. Those have deeper blacks, but overall these are the best LCD displays on the market in my opinion. Now both phones, even though they are not technically as high as 1080p as far as their resolution is concerned, will both support 1080p YouTube videos. So what happens is the phones actually will scale that resolution to fit the display. So where the iPhone SE is closer to 720p, the iPhone XR is in between 720 and 1080p. So you'll see we have the option for 1080p on either display, and it will look just fine. On a smaller display, the resolutions are less important than if you're on a huge television in your living room. So 720p is just fine on this display. You can't see the pixels, and in fact, iPad Pro and all the iPads have lower pixel densities, and these displays actually look a little bit nicer when they're held up close. Now both phones have stereo speakers, and they go about equally loud. So you have a speaker up at the top, and then you also have one on the bottom, and both of these speakers, like I said, are basically identical. You've got wide sound, stereo sound, and they're great for watching videos. Now the iPhone XR has Face ID, where the iPhone SE has Touch ID. It's basically an iPhone 8 with an iPhone 11 internals. But you do have the second gen Touch ID, where it's nice and fast to unlock. It's very easy to do. And on the iPhone XR, you just raise it and swipe up as you're raising the phone and it unlocks. Both are about the same speed. Some people are going to prefer Touch ID, some people are going to prefer Face ID, but you have the option of either or, and they both work well. So it just really comes down to whatever you choose to use. Now internally, both of them have very fast processors. The iPhone XR has the A12 Bionic CPU, whereas the iPhone SE has the newer A13 Bionic, but they both have 3 gigabytes of RAM, and they're surprisingly close as far as their speed. That A13 has a newer neural engine, so that should help it with cameras and photos and things like that, and video as well, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. But as far as the overall speed, it should be basically the same. So if you were to open apps, we'll take a closer look at the speed a little bit later, but just things like opening music are going to be basically the same. Scrolling should be the same. Doing intensive tasks will be the same. It really comes down to when you're doing things with the camera where you'll see some of the difference. Now both have front-facing cameras at 7 megapixels. They both have f2.2 apertures, and both can record in 1080p at 30 frames per second. However, with the iPhone XR, because you have Face ID, you also have a true depth sensor, but you can do portrait mode on either. So if we go into the camera here, flip the camera around, we do have portrait mode on both of them. It took a second on both of them, but you'll see they're both responding the same. Let me snap a picture here. And you can see both of the pictures. They're basically going to look the same. Now, as far as the rear-facing cameras, you do have a little bit of a difference there in that the iPhone SE actually carries over the sensor from the iPhone 8, but adds the A13 Bionic's processing to help make the pictures a little bit better. Whereas the iPhone XR has a very similar camera as well. They both have 12 megapixel sensors with f1.8 apertures, and both can record at 4K 60. However, one of the interesting things is, let's spin the cameras around here. One of the interesting things is we can't change the actual frame rate in real time on the iPhone XR just by tapping on the upper right-hand side corner. So you'll see it's stuck at 4K 30. If I do the same thing on the iPhone SE, you'll see that it's actually able to change between all the different frame rates. So that's kind of interesting. There's no reason the iPhone XR couldn't do it. They just didn't add it. So that's kind of strange, but it's something you'll have to deal with. Now, I wanted to show you some samples not only of the video, but also of photos taken with the rear-facing cameras. So take a look at some of these. I'm recording video with both the iPhone XR and the iPhone SE. And so now you can hear the microphone of the iPhone SE and see what it sounds like as compared to the microphone on the iPhone XR. Both of them look pretty good to me, but let me know what you think about them in the comments below. Now the cameras are great for taking portraits of people and things like that, but they won't do object portrait mode. So you'll see both of them say no person detected. So they're very equal in that right. Now with the forward-facing camera on the iPhone XR, because it has the true depth sensor, you can do things like Memoji. So if we're in messages here, you'll see we have the option for Animoji and Memoji. And so maybe I want to pick the mouse here. You'll see, bring it up full screen. You'll see it will face track and do Animoji and Memoji and things like that. So if you want to use it, it's in the XR. It is not in the iPhone SE. Now, battery life on both phones is quite a bit different. With the iPhone SE, because it's fairly small, we have a 1,821 milliamp hour battery. That's going to get you about 4 to 5 hours of regular use. But with the iPhone XR, it has a 2,942 milliamp hour battery, where some people are getting up to 7 hours of screen on time. So it just depends on what you're doing with your phone, how you're using it. Expect to charge it a little bit more. But both will support fast charging if you have the fast charging adapter, and both support wireless charging. You can set your phone on a wireless charger and it will charge no problem. Both of them support wireless charging. So you have that built in for both. So it can be charged however you'd like. It works great either way, but with the iPhone SE, because the battery's smaller, expect it to charge a little bit faster also. Now internally, because we have the A13 in the iPhone SE and the A12 in the iPhone XR, there are some different wireless standards. So for example, with the iPhone XR, it supports Wi-Fi, AB, GN, and AC, along with Bluetooth 5.0. But with the iPhone SE, it supports Wi-Fi, AB, GN, AC, AX, which is Wi-Fi 6, and then Bluetooth 5.0. So you do get Wi-Fi 6 in the new iPhone SE. So that really shouldn't help you determine which one to get, but you do get the advantage of a little bit faster speeds if you have a Wi-Fi 6 router at home or you're out and about using it. Now, speed between both of them should be fairly similar, even though they have a little bit of a difference when it comes to the CPU. So if you're just doing something simple like browsing the internet, you're on a web page, you're going to see the same sort of scrolling speeds, the same sort of experience. Maybe you want to load the page on iPhone SE. You'll see sometimes it's going to vary depending on what you're doing, but overall, they're going to be basically the same depending on how you're using them. Now, there's a couple other ways to show you this. One way is to actually show you the Geekbench scores or the benchmarks of what the actual CPU can perform at when it's given a specific task. So let's take a look at the Geekbench scores. And so if we run the CPU Geekbench scores, we'll hit Run Benchmark, and we'll let them run, and I'll show you the difference between the two of them when it comes to these scores. Now the benchmarks have completed, and you can see on the iPhone XR we have 1,117, whereas on the iPhone SE for single-core score we have 1,319. Now for multi-core we have a little bit faster on the iPhone SE as well at 2,565 versus 2,443. Now this should give you a general idea of what the CPU is actually capable of, and then also the compute score shows you graphic capability. So we'll run the benchmark on both of these and see what this says as well. Now in the graphics department, the iPhone SE is quite a bit faster as well. So we have 6,337 versus the iPhone XR's 4,486. So this just gives you a general idea of what the CPU can do when you push specific tasks at it. Now let's take a look at what it can do as far as opening a game. You shouldn't really see much of a difference between these. So let's go into Minecraft here. Let's see if I can find it here. There we go. We'll open Minecraft. So let's turn these so we can see it a little bit better. We'll hit continue. We'll hit play. We'll create a new world. And let's hit create. And then we'll hit proceed. Now this isn't necessarily representative of overall horsepower of the processor, but it gives you an idea of what it's like when you're loading a video game, and you should see the frame rates basically the same. Both are 60p displays, so you really shouldn't expect more than that. So in general, they're going to be equally smooth between both of them. Now, one final way I like to show what it can do is export a 4K video, since computers need a lot of power to do the same thing. And iOS or iPhones and iPads in general are very good at this. So let's go into iMovie. We'll close out Minecraft, just to be fair. In fact, let's close everything. Let's go over to iMovie here. We'll go into it on this phone and on this one. And what you'll see is this is the exact same video on both. So You can shrink the timeline or make it a little bit bigger. Let's shrink it here to make it even. And what you'll see is it's the exact same video on both. If I scroll all the way to the end, it's a 3-minute and 45-second video. So what I'm going to do is export this in 4K and see what it takes as far as its time to do so. So let's go ahead and slide these over. We'll bring in a different iPhone as a stopwatch here. And let's see what we can do. So we'll hit done on both of them. Then we'll hit share. Then we want to save the video. And then we're going to select 4K. So I'll hit 4K and then start. And let's see what they do as far as export times. Now I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch the whole thing. Now that's incredibly fast for both of these. They're very similar as far as export times, and to export in 2 minutes and 26 seconds is faster than many MacBooks that I've seen. So in general, that's very impressive. Now both phones are quite impressive as far as speed, and they keep up well with the latest iPhone 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max. And so you really shouldn't have an issue there. And I think the determination of which one you should buy comes down to a couple different things. The first one being price. $399 for an iPhone SE is pretty hard to beat, and then just a little bit more if you want some more storage. But the iPhone XR can be had pretty reasonably as well, depending on if you get it new, refurbished, with a deal at your carrier, or things like that. So size, of course, is the other determination. So not only price, but size. Personally, I'd pick the iPhone XR, and that is because of its size. My hands are larger. I like the little bit bigger screen, and Face ID is something I've gotten used to. But if you're someone that really likes Touch ID, then the iPhone SE is for you, unless, of course, the phone is too small. So you'll still have the iPhone 8 Plus that you could pick up refurbished, or maybe we'll have an iPhone SE Plus later this year. But right now, I think the iPhone for me is the XR, but depending on size and budget is really what helps you determine which one to pick. They're both equally fast, they both take great video and photos, and I think either one is the right choice depending on what works best for you. But let me know which one's the one you would pick and why in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course I'll link it in the description as I always do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.